Hi guys, how are you guys doing? Just wanted to bring up to attention for all the international students trying to apply. The thing is that there are two things which people are trying to understand when they're trying to select Canada for their future destination for education. Number one is how the city life's gonna be where they're headed to for the university, and secondly, how expensive or cheap certain provinces in Canada are. And so the universities are gonna be like that too. So starting off with the four Atlantic provinces which Canada has, which are Prince Edward Island, the smallest province of Canada. Then there's Nova Scotia, there's Newfoundland and Labrador, and there's New Brunswick. So there's population is less, the Muslim community is less. A lot of time you're gonna find mosques or other places of worship if you're coming from India, which are confined to a house with a permit to pray there. The tax percentage in Nova Scotia is quite high, but the thing is, other things are gonna be less expensive in terms of university. But if you guys have to order anything from Amazon or anywhere online which requires shipment or availability, those things are gonna be very expensive. Other than that, for people who are looking for any specific kind of food or dress, those are gonna be expensive because the nearest seaport where majority of things come or majority of things come is in Quebec. So moving from there to the central Canada, which is considered Quebec and Ontario. So Ontario is the most expensive one. Probably British Columbia would be second most expensive, or if not joined to Ontario with that thing. Quebec, the cost of living for rent and food is considerably less than Ontario. The universities are gonna be more or less same as Ontario, depending on what university you're trying to attend. $24,000, $28,000 for master's program for international students. McGill is a very big university. A lot of universities in Quebec are French oriented, but if they are teaching in English, they are gonna ask you to complete certain courses in other universities from Sherborne to Laval to Montreal to Quebec City and areas around Montreal. So you might end up taking a course or two in a different university. We call them schools here. So yeah, and then Ontario is gonna be the most expensive one. If you're coming to a community college, you might be able to survive if you have done bachelor's before. You can do advanced standing. That's a different video. But if you're coming for a university, it's very competitive. It's very research based. It's very expensive. The profs have their own books, which they prefer that you buy so that you can go through a course easily. The cost of living around GTA and Hamilton is a bit higher. So you might have to end up sharing a place with someone. So keep that in mind. But if you discount universities like University of Toronto or Waterloo University, University of Ottawa, Carleton, other universities like University of Guelph or McMaster or Ryerson, you can survive with their fee structure because Ryerson fee structure is still high, but they're not gonna ask you to buy a lot of books, and you can pass your course easily there. But yeah, the rent and everything. So basically, universities close to Toronto. There's a bus system in Toronto. It's a Go Transit. There's a train system and bus system, which runs from Toronto to Oshawa if you're going to UOIT, University of Ontario Institute of Technology, or you're going to communities like Waterloo, which is in Kitchener. So people usually prefer living in Toronto for the simple reason they can have jobs easily available, and they can commute via bus in 1 hour. They'll take you to your desired university. Even living in Toronto, if you're living in Brampton and your college, community college, let's say Seneca, has a campus in North York, which is Toronto, still gonna take you more than an hour to reach from Brampton to Toronto for that. Or if you are in Scarborough and you have to go to Markham, because once you pass the Toronto Steels line, the after north of that becomes Markham. There's extra fare. The bus frequency is less. And same goes for if you're coming from Toronto to a Mississauga college or a Brampton college, Sheridan, Humber, anything like that. We have Zoom transport here. There's also some transport, different kind of transport for Richmond and Vaughan, the Maple County, they say, which is York Regional Transport, YRT. So yeah, but in all, if you're going to a place which is close to Toronto, it's gonna be a bit expensive. Windsor is a good location. It borders with the U.S. It's 4 hours from Toronto. You can study in University of Windsor, which is good. London is another good option. 2 hours from Toronto, 2.5 hours on a busy day. There's a very good university in London. So those kind of things are there if you're specifically eyeing, or if your relatives reside in Ontario and you want to be nearby them. And further moving west, the Prairie provinces start with their three Prairie provinces in Canada. There's Manitoba, there's Saskatchewan, and there's Alberta. Alberta is the most expensive one because there's the Edmonton and Calgary cities are big. Their university fees are kind of expensive than University of Saskatchewan and University of Regina, and same goes for Manitoba or University of Winnipeg and other few universities. Winnipeg should be your last choice if you are a more social person, if you like to go out, if you like to enjoy sun, you don't like the feel of living in India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, where there's a very good, nice building, and beside that there's an abandoned church or a disformity of some kind. You're gonna find it ridiculous expecting something coming to Canada and arriving in Winnipeg and finding that looks like dirty or ghetto. I don't want to say that, but it looks not as polished as you'd find Calgary downtown or Montreal's downtown or Toronto downtown or Vancouver downtown. So yeah, that'd be the cheapest one. The university fees are kind of okay. Saskatchewan is the same. University of Regina is gonna be cheapest. It's in the capital of Saskatchewan, which is Regina, and then they have a community college there too called SciEst. It's in Saskatoon too, and Regina too. Saskatoon is the biggest city in Saskatchewan. University of Saskatchewan is there. They have a pre approval form before they ask you to apply for admission. They ask you to apply for assessment for certain programs. So, but yeah, cost of living is gonna be very cheap for Winnipeg, and same goes for Regina and Saskatchewan. I personally know a lot of students who are sharing a room for $150, $200, and some other places close to university. Let's say, for example, University of Regina, the closest intersections are the McDonough Boulevard and Kramer, and then Massey Road is there. So those places you can find a shared room for like $400, $450. It's been the same for I think 10, 15 years. The housing market dictates that, so the housing prices haven't raised that much, so the rent and everything is the same. Moving on to Alberta, Calgary downtown is very steep especially for the university, unless you're going to a medical campus. Still, University of Calgary campuses are close by. The housing is gonna be a bit on the high end. That's, I would say, $400 to $600 for a room, separate room. Edmonton's gonna be freezing cold. Calgary gets flooding and everything a lot. Past 2 years, 3 years being like that. And their transport system is good, but on a very, very mediocre percentage of good. I would say 60%. So you're still not gonna be as good as Toronto, but it's gonna be good if you are coming from a place which is underdeveloped. So you're gonna still find it good. The university is good. There are a few colleges there too. Same goes for Edmonton. The most famous college in Edmonton would be NAIT, NAIT, and for Calgary, it's SAIT. So the S and N is for north and south because Calgary is south of Edmonton and Edmonton is north of Calgary. There's another university, McEwen, in Edmonton downtown, very nicely built. And I think there's Concordia University there too. Not sure about that. Might be a college. Look into it. The prices for Calgary and Edmonton universities are still gonna be high, and it's pretty tough to get admission into University of Alberta in Canada. Very, very reputable and respected institute. Moving on to the west coast is Vancouver, Richmond, Surrey, all those areas. The capital of British Columbia is Victoria. There's a university there, the University of Victoria. Pretty good community. College, the universities are gonna be expensive, especially University of British Columbia and then University of Northern British Columbia. Excuse me. So yeah, the housing and rental market is crazy in Vancouver. People live easily quite far away from Vancouver to Richmond, Surrey, and I forgot the other place name. Because the rental market, they require a lot of stuff, a lot of documents from people to rent a place, let them rent a place from them. And the number of advertisements coming on Kijiji.ca or for this Facebook Marketplace is less, and people who want the place are more. So it's kind of like a supply and demand issue. That's why you need to work really hard to find accommodation. University accommodations are crazy. Don't even go for that if you're an international student. If you're an international student. So yeah, those are the things I wanted to talk to you about, so you have a bit of idea about how the city life's gonna be, how vibrant, how diverse, how happening the scene's gonna be when you arrive here, or just in general how the university is gonna be. So I would say if you're from a middle class family, try to apply in prairie provinces, and mix and match between if you're applying in Manitoba and Alberta, or you can apply in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, or Saskatchewan and Alberta even. You can apply for a university in Toronto. One of the university in Toronto, Ryerson is good, York is good, Guelph is good, and you can so either choose like two universities with the middle sort of fees, or choose a university which is very high in fees and very low in fees, so it averages out your chances of getting an admission, getting a visa, and then once you come here you can test the waters. If you don't like it, you can change secondary institution. You don't have to tell the government that you changed it. But make sure whichever college or university you choose, it is listed on the CIC website. It has a DLI number, so you guys can get a postgrad work permit. That's all.